The most successful people you know say no to almost everything. Every yes to a low priority request is a no to your most important goals. The hidden cost, the mental bandwidth drain that kills your focus for days, the anticipation anxiety before the commitment, the resentment during it, the mental rumination after when the commitment is over, but your brain is still arguing with it in the shower. This video will show you how to guard your calendar like the high ROI asset it is, because right now, you're treating it like a community bulletin board. And the reason this keeps happening isn't bad time management, it's two fears quietly making your decisions for you. Once you see them, it becomes obvious why saying no feels so hard. Chapter 1. Yes Man Syndrome. The two fears running your calendar. Have you ever agreed to something and immediately regretted it? That split-second yes that turned into weeks of dread? That moment where your soul leaves your body, but your mouth keeps talking? Your mouth says yes, while your brain is already calculating how to get out of it. It's like signing a contract while actively Googling how to fake your own disappearance. This happens because two specific fears run your calendar like puppet strings, and neither of them has your best interests in mind. First fear, FOMO, fear of missing out. The terror that declining one opportunity means missing the career breakthrough, the networking connection, or the relationship-defining moment. Your brain treats every invite like it's the final level of a video game. When your colleague asks if you want to join that new cross-functional committee, FOMO whispers that this could be your visibility opportunity. Decline, and you might miss the one conversation that leads to your promotion. Because obviously, promotions only happen in windowless conference rooms with bad coffee. FOMO creates a scarcity mindset. You treat every request like it's the last train leaving the station, even when you know another one arrives in 10 minutes. Your calendar thinks it's living in the apocalypse. Every invitation becomes urgent. Every project becomes the one that could change your trajectory. So you say yes to the weekend work session, the voluntary task force, the networking happy hour you have zero interest in attending. You don't want to go, but you also don't want to be the person who didn't go. You're not excited about any of it. You're just terrified of what you might miss if you decline. Here's where it gets worse. Second fear, the don't be a jerk fear. The deeply embedded belief that saying no makes you selfish, unreliable, or difficult to work with. This is the fear that thinks boundaries are a personality flaw. This fear lives in the part of your brain that desperately wants to be liked and accepted. When someone asks for your time, declining feels like you're announcing to the world that you're uncooperative. Like you just stood up and said, "Actually, I hate teamwork and joy." So you agree, even when you're already underwater with your actual priorities. Here's the reality check. You're massively overestimating how much your no is going to actually affect the life of another person. Most people asking for your time have backup options. They'll find someone else, adjust their plan, or realize the request wasn't that urgent to begin with. The world does not, in fact, stop spinning. Your no doesn't ruin their day, but your reluctant yes definitely ruins yours. These fears work together like a trap. FOMO tells you the opportunity is rare and valuable. The jerk fear tells you that declining will burn bridges and damage your reputation. You're caught between the fear of missing out and the fear of letting someone down. It's like being emotionally blackmailed by your own calendar. The result? You say yes to everything. Your boss walks up at 4:45 on Friday and asks for a quick favor. FOMO immediately kicks in and whispers that this is a visibility opportunity. If you help, your boss will remember you're reliable when promotion discussions happen. Somehow, this quick favor takes exactly the length of your entire evening. The jerk fear chimes in and says refusing makes you look uncommitted or like you're clock watching. So you cancel your evening plans and stay late for a task that has zero impact on your actual performance metrics. Congratulations, you've just traded dinner for a spreadsheet. Or a friend asks you to help plan their elaborate birthday party. FOMO says declining might mean you're not really part of the inner circle. Jerk fear says no makes you a bad friend. You agree, and now you're spending hours on seating charts and vendor negotiations when you have a project deadline looming. You didn't want cake, you wanted peace. You resent every minute, but you're trapped because both fears told you saying no wasn't an option. Here's what most people miss. Both fears are based on a false premise about how successful people actually operate. The permission paradox reveals that highly successful people don't just say no more often as a result of their success. They achieve success because they learned to say no. By being selective with their time and commitments, they amplify the value and impact of their yes. When they finally do say yes, people pay attention because it's rare and meaningful, not because they were the only ones willing to join another committee. Successful people decline requests constantly, and their careers don't suffer. Their careers accelerate. They focus on high ROI activities instead of diluting their energy across dozens of low-impact commitments. The fears lie. The two hidden fears keeping you trapped don't reflect reality. They just sound convincing when you're tired and standing in a hallway being asked for one quick thing. Understanding the fears is only step one. The real damage happens in what these reluctant yeses actually cost you, and the price tag is far steeper than you think. Chapter 2. The Hidden Tax. How every yes drains your bandwidth. Every yes you give costs you 3 times the actual time commitment, which is rude because nobody warned you about the hidden fees. Most people calculate only the visible cost when they agree to something. The meeting is 2 hours. The project takes an afternoon. The favor requires 1 evening. They look at their calendar, see the open slot, and think they can afford it. Like time is a coupon that expires if you don't use it. They're wrong by a factor of 3. Here's what they miss. Time debt. The real cost of saying yes extends far beyond the 2 hours you spend in the meeting or helping with the project. Time debt works like compound interest on a credit card, except instead of buying shoes, you bought yourself a recurring headache. The initial charge looks manageable, but the interest accumulates in the background until the balance becomes unmanageable. Your brain keeps a running tab of every reluctant yes, and eventually that bill comes due. And your brain is not the kind of accountant who forgets things. Every time you say yes when you want to say no, you're actually being dishonest twice. Once to yourself about your capacity, and once to the other person about your enthusiasm. You're basically lying with a smile. This dishonesty creates a drain on your emotional bandwidth that extends far beyond the hours you spend on the commitment itself. Phase 1 starts the moment you agree. Anticipation anxiety kicks in immediately. This is the "why did I say that" phase. Your brain now carries this commitment in working memory, creating a persistent background hum of stress. You're sitting at your desk, trying to focus on your priority work, but part of your emotional bandwidth is diverted to this upcoming obligation. The committee meeting isn't until next Thursday, but your brain is already processing it, worrying about it, and calculating how it will disrupt your week. It's like your mind added it to your internal to-do list in permanent marker. This mental load diminishes the quality of your current work. You're not fully present because your emotional bandwidth is split between what you're doing now and what you've committed to later. It's like trying to run a high-performance engine while simultaneously draining fuel from the tank. You're multitasking, but emotionally. The effectiveness drops across everything you touch. Phase 2 hits during the actual event. You're physically present, but mentally calculating everything else you should be doing. Your attention is split. You're nodding along in the meeting while your brain is screaming about the project deadline, the emails piling up, and the high ROI work you're missing. Your body showed up, but your motivation called in sick. This divided focus reduces the quality of both the commitment and your priority work. You're not contributing your best to the meeting, and you're definitely not advancing your actual goals. Your emotional bandwidth is stretched thin, trying to cover commitments you never wanted in the first place. You're buffering in real life. Phase 3 is the killer, post-project rumination. You replay the experience, second-guess your contribution, and process the resentment of having agreed in the first place. This is where your brain turns into a true crime podcast about your own decisions. You spend emotional bandwidth rehashing the commitment, calculating the time lost, and building frustration toward the person who asked. This mental rehashing consumes additional resources long after the commitment is complete. The meeting ended hours ago, but you're still mentally chewing on it, which means it's still costing you bandwidth. It lives rent-free in your head. Each reluctant yes adds to a cumulative debt that compounds like financial interest. Your brain meticulously keeps a running tally of these commitments. Your mind is basically running a spreadsheet called bad decisions. The emotional bandwidth cost accumulates until you hit burnout. You're not just tired from the hours worked. You're depleted from carrying obligations you never wanted in the first place. You agree to join a committee that meets monthly. The meetings are 1 hour, but you spend 3 hours beforehand dreading it, 1 hour in the meeting, and 2 hours afterward frustrated about the time lost. That's 6 hours of bandwidth for a 1-hour commitment. That's not a meeting, that's a subscription. Multiply that across every low-priority yes on your calendar, and you see why your energy is gone. High achievers guard their calendars obsessively. They understand that emotional bandwidth is their highest ROI asset, and every low-priority yes is a withdrawal from that account. Meanwhile, most of us are overdrafting on vibes. They protect this resource because they know it's finite and non-renewable. The breakdown is clear. Saying yes drains your emotional bandwidth beyond just lost hours through anticipation anxiety, split attention during the commitment, and post-project resentment, creating a time debt that compounds until you burn out. But here's the problem. Your mouth says yes before your brain has time to run the numbers. The automatic yes response is a reflex, not a decision, and breaking that reflex requires a specific technique, which is unfortunate because your mouth is wildly confident, but your brain is still loading. Chapter 3. The Pause Protocol. Breaking the automatic yes. The most powerful word in your productivity toolkit isn't no. It's let me check my calendar and get back to you. That single phrase buys you the decision space that separates high performers from people who constantly feel overwhelmed. Most people don't have a saying no problem. They have an automatic yes problem. Someone asks, and your mouth says yes before your brain evaluates alignment with priorities. Your mouth is wildly optimistic. Your brain is still in the loading screen. The request comes in, and you're already nodding before you've considered whether this commitment moves you toward your goals or away from them. This reflex bypasses rational evaluation entirely. Your brain treats the request like a hot stove. React first, think later. Unfortunately, the stove is usually a calendar invite. The pause technique transforms a reflex into a strategic choice. You create space between the request and your response. When someone asks for your time, your immediate response should be a version of, I need to review my current commitments before I can give you a reliable answer, or, that sounds interesting. Let me check my schedule and get back to you by end of day. Which feels dramatic but really just means opening Google Calendar with respect. These phrases aren't rejection, they're decision hygiene, like washing your hands before touching your schedule. More importantly, this strategy directly counteracts people attempting to pressure you or get you right in the moment, which is exactly when your automatic yes reflex is most vulnerable. This feels uncomfortable at first. You worry the person will think you're blowing them off, or that the opportunity will evaporate. Like if you don't answer immediately, the request will self-destruct. Neither happens. In professional and personal contexts, a request for time to consider is not perceived as rejection. Valuable opportunities rarely disappear in the short window needed to check your schedule. The discomfort you feel is your automatic yes reflex panicking because you've interrupted its control over your calendar. It's basically throwing a tantrum. During this pause, you run a quick priority audit. Does this request align with your top 3 goals? Does it move the needle on high ROI activities? Or is it a low priority time leak disguised as an opportunity? Because some opportunities are just meetings in a trench coat. The pause creates space for this evaluation. Without it, you're making calendar decisions based on reflex and fear instead of strategy and priorities. Ask yourself one question during the pause. If I say yes to this, what am I saying no to? Your calendar is zero sum. Every yes displaces something else. When you agree to join that committee, you're declining the focused work session that advances your priority project. When you say yes to helping plan the office party, you're saying no to the strategic thinking time that could solve your biggest bottleneck. You're not gaining tasks, you're trading them. The pause makes this trade-off visible. Most people never see it because they respond too quickly. The evaluation framework is simple. If the request isn't aligned with your top 3 goals or doesn't qualify as a high ROI activity, it gets a no. If you wouldn't rate it as a hell yes level commitment that genuinely excites you or moves your priorities forward, it defaults to no. Mildly tolerable is not a strategy. This success filter ensures your yeses are intentional and reliable. You're not the person who agrees to everything and follows through on nothing. You're the person whose yes means something because you've evaluated it against your actual priorities. The pause also signals to others that your time has value. People who respect boundaries actually respect you more when you don't immediately cave to every request. This is the permission paradox in action. The more you say no, the more people respect your yes. Scarcity makes your calendar more attractive. When you respond thoughtfully instead of reflexively, you communicate that your commitments are intentional and reliable. The simple pause technique prevents automatic yes responses by creating decision space between the request and your answer, allowing you to evaluate alignment with your actual priorities. Pausing is only half the equation. Once you've decided to decline, you need language that actually holds the boundary without destroying the relationship, and that's where the wheels usually come off. Which is impressive, because the pause part was the easy one. Chapter 4. The Graceful No. Scripts that preserve relationships. Most people think saying no requires a long explanation, an apology, and a promise to make it up later. Basically, a breakup speech for a calendar invite. All three make it worse. The over-explanation signals that you're not confident in your boundary, which gives people an opening to try to needle you into saying yes. The more you talk, the more it sounds like you're negotiating with a hostage taker. The apology suggests you're doing something wrong by protecting your time. The promise to make it up later just kicks the problem down the road. Future you has entered the chat and is not happy. You end up saying yes eventually anyway, just with extra guilt attached. The framework for a relationship-preserving no has 3 components, and none of them involve apologizing for having boundaries. Which is shocking, because we were all trained to say sorry when someone bumps into us. This structure maintains the relationship while holding your ground. It's not about being rude or burning bridges. It's about being clear and reliable. You're not starting a war. You're setting office hours. Component 1. Start with gratitude. Acknowledge the request and the relationship. I appreciate you thinking of me for this, or thanks for the opportunity to contribute. This opening recognizes that the person valued you enough to ask. It removes the sting of rejection because you're not dismissing the request as worthless. You're honoring the fact that they considered you. You're saying thanks without accidentally saying yes. Component 2. State your constraint clearly and firmly. No hedging, no maybe later, no wiggle room. My current focus is on this priority project, and I don't have bandwidth to give this the attention it deserves. This is a complete sentence. It requires no follow-up. You've stated your reality without leaving room for negotiation. No footnotes, no emotional bonus content. This is where people panic. They want to soften the no with, I wish I could, or maybe next time. These phrases invite negotiation and pressure. When you say, maybe next time, The other person hears, "Keep asking," or "Convince me harder." You think you're closing the door. They think you left it cracked open. You've opened a negotiation instead of stating a boundary. Hedging undermines your entire no because it signals you're uncertain and might be persuaded with the right argument. You've turned a decision into a sales call. Component 3. Offer an alternative when possible. Recommend someone else, suggest a different timeline, or propose a smaller way to contribute. I can't take on the full project, but I'd be happy to recommend someone who'd be great for this, or I can't commit to the committee, but I could review the final recommendations if that helps. This keeps the door open without sacrificing your boundary. You're showing willingness to help within your actual capacity. Helpful, but not trapped. For situations where someone keeps badgering you and won't accept no for an answer, you need badger-proof phrases. These are your emergency protocol for persistent pressure. This is the verbal equivalent of pulling the fire alarm. These phrases are self-referential boundaries that can't be argued with. With my current schedule, I'd be unreliable, and I won't let myself be that person. Or, my family would be disappointed if I took on another obligation right now. These phrases work because they make the boundary about your capacity or values, not about the person asking. You're framing the refusal as being in the best interest of the asker because you're protecting your reliability. You're not rejecting them. You're protecting the version of you they actually want. There's nothing to negotiate because you're not rejecting them. You're protecting your ability to deliver quality commitments. The other person can't argue with your family's expectations or your commitment to being dependable. They'd have to convince you to become unreliable, which nobody will explicitly attempt. No one's brave enough to say, "Yes, please be worse at your job." The boundary becomes unassailable because it references standards you've set for yourself. These strategies work because they reframe what a no actually means. It's not rejection. It's honesty about your capacity and commitment to reliability. It's not rude. It's accurate. That reframe is the foundation for eliminating the guilt and dishonesty that keep you trapped in the automatic yes cycle. The next time someone asks for your time, don't answer right away. Give yourself a second to think about it. Check what you're already committed to before you say yes. And if this idea of protecting your time sounds useful, the next video is about something that makes all of this easier. Sleep. Better sleep means better focus, more energy, and way more productivity without cramming more into your day. If you want that video, go ahead and subscribe. I've got more coming on boundaries, productivity, and building a schedule that actually works.